Right, so 9 years ago, my son, who was, he'd had a difficult childhood, let's just say that, with the abuse that had occurred in Greece and this escape from Greece. And we were in a hostel, and then we moved, and I was a single mum, and he got in with a bad crowd, and he was drinking at 14. This is my other son, not Costa's. And he was pretty messed up, everything that had happened. And it got worse. At 19, he decided to go and find his dad in Greece, who rejected him and beat him up, actually, and was really horrible to him. And then he decided to go and join the army, the Greek army, and that's where he got a diagnosis. He was, they just said that he wasn't well enough to stay in the Greek army, and they released him on medical grounds. And my brother went over to Greece to be with him, to bring him home. And I got a phone call from my brother saying that he needs to go to hospital as soon as he gets home. He's psychotic. He's not well. And we thought, he came home, but then he disappeared for about 3 weeks. We didn't know where he was. We were trying to find him. And then he turned up in Kendal, and we found out he was staying at his friend's house, his father was a drug dealer. And he was in a mess, and he was drinking, he was taking drugs. And we eventually got him into a hospital. All the time we were trying to get him into hospital, in a hostel. Couldn't come home because I had my daughter, and my husband was saying he can't come here because he wasn't well. He was very unwell. He was having a psychotic episode, is what they told us. And the crisis team came out to him on that Friday and said that they couldn't do anything for him until after Christmas, January, and this was November. And he was in a state, an absolute state, and had a breakdown. He was just not well, but he was taking drink and drugs as part of this unwellness. So that day, he had downed 2 bottles of rum. He'd got his money through and downed 2 bottles of rum, went to bargain booze, assaulted somebody on the way. And what he was trying to do was get to prison or to hospital. He was wanted to go to hospital. He thought if he did all this, then they would take him to hospital. He took some money off somebody, and then and none of it that I'm talking about I'm condoning in any way, shape or form. Not any way, shape or form. He shouldn't have been drinking. He should have been trying to find help some other way. And every day he says that he wishes he could apologise to his victims, but he's not allowed to speak to them. He's not allowed to come to Kendal. So that day he downed all this alcohol. He went for a rampage. He was shouting in the street. He ended up on a park near the town centre at a youth shelter, a teenage shelter. There was 4 adolescents, teenagers there. And he told them they weren't going until the police came. He knew the police were coming, and he said, don't go until the police come. They had their phones. I think he probably thought, he had to take their phones off them, so he asked for their phones. 3 of them gave their phones. The girl said she didn't have a phone and said, you can search me if you want. He searched her. He searched her for a phone. Open-palmed search. And that was what was written in the statement. Then one of the girls was crying, and it suddenly sort of dawned on him what he was doing, and he was like consoling her and saying, don't cry, it's okay, don't cry. And he kissed her on her forehead. He was drunk, completely drunk. He kissed her here on her forehead to try and stop her from crying, but he was drunk. And none of it's right, and the victims would have been frightened and hurt and scared, and I don't condone his behaviour one little bit. he went to court. There was 2 psychiatric reports that said that he was psychotic. That was stopping the news coming in. And then the 3rd report was a court report, and it said he just had borderline personality disorder, so the court could report on it. And then, so when the verdict came, it was harsh, very harsh, and that was the police. Even the police said, you can appeal this. When he was arrested, he just pleaded guilty to everything and said that he just needed to admit what he'd done because he wanted to go to hospital. He didn't have any counsel, any solicitor's counsel. He just said, I'm guilty, because he wanted to go and get help. What's gone? Oh, the court. Yeah, the court just said guilty, and they sent him to prison instead of hospital. And we fought for 6 months. It was in Durham, and people in Durham were calling him the things you're calling him now. But some people heard his story and knew that what he'd done wasn't, it was an open-palmed search for a phone. That's what it was. He laid hands on a girl, yes he did, and it was wrong and he shouldn't have done it. But it was a search for a phone, which he said, you can search me if you want. So some of them, knew what it was, and they said, oh, we'll talk for you. And he said, no, because then you look like you're, sticking up for me. And anyway, eventually got into St Nick's Hospital and did 19 months there, and then the final bit he had to go back to prison just for a short spell. But those 19 months in St Nick's Hospital made him well, helped him to understand what triggered him, what he needed, what help he needed, how he could manage the loss, the rejection from his father, everything that had happened to him. And he says, Mum, I know what I did was terrible, but I got help. And this is what happens, you don't get help. And he said a lot of people in prison just needed help, and they never got help. So he was very thankful that he managed to get to hospital. What he did was wrong. There's no, I'm not a mum that's sticking up for a son. And if he had raped a girl or sexually assaulted a girl in that way, I don't know what I would have done. Obviously, I'm a mum. But I wouldn't have, he wouldn't have come away with us at Christmas, the last year that we had the children with us as well. He wouldn't have been with us, and his probation allowed him to come with us. But I'm sure if he'd raped a child or he'd sexually assaulted a child, they would never have let him come away with us at Christmas or had family holidays with us. So I'm not smiling, I'm not happy, I'm very unhappy. I know that I am a target. I know that they are trying to stop what we're doing to protect children and fight for the children. And my sons both have had phone calls. My son's boss has had a phone call highlighting the newspaper article, and his boss has sat down and talked to him and listened to what actually happened, and his report of the events, which is in a police report, is not making anything up. He's telling the truth, and his boss is saying, I couldn't, it's fine. Even if it was how it was in the press, which it obviously wasn't, they do 70% true, 30% making it out like he's what you think he is. Oh yeah, he got that phone call, and my other son got a phone call saying, we know who your brother is, from the police. So it's threats, and they've actually done it. They've released it to you lot. I'm sorry I didn't speak about it, but it really hadn't, because it was what it was, I hadn't ever thought about it again, to be honest with you. I didn't know that this was going to happen. I'm very open and honest, and it's just something I'd never spoke about. People with mental health problems don't get help when they need it. and that's how many people end up in prison, begging for help, which they don't get. And I'm blessed that Andy did get help, and he's just gone from, he's just an ordinary builder who put that behind him. The only regret he has is that he can't say sorry to his victims. I've spoken to I've spoken to a police. I haven't spoken to the police. I've spoken to the newspaper. I've told them what's happening right now. I've said, you know, what you should do is an article about mental health and use our case. But I suppose they won't, because it's Kendall. I've asked to speak to the editor, to tell them that, you know, even that he was wearing a balaclava. He wasn't wearing a balaclava. He was wearing a bandana, which he wore on his head like that, because he had long hair at the time, and he was a skater boy as well, growing up. So I think that's the image that he had at that time. So yeah, just you can make what you want of all of it, but he hasn't raped anybody, and he hasn't sexually assaulted any child in the way that you're thinking. He searched for a phone. He touched a girl. Yes, he did. He searched for her phone. It was open palmed. That's what they called it on the police report. Open palmed. So I don't even know if I'm going to put this out. I don't even know whether you'll believe me, or whether, you know, people do just want to believe what they want to believe, but that's fine. You can believe what you want. I'm just getting my point across, getting my son's across, and I've said to him, you know, you need to give your testimony, and how it has affected you, and how it, you know it's affected your victims, and how sorry you are for that, and also to see who you are, and what an amazing man you are, and how you've come through that, and you've never looked back from that time. So I might put it out. I'll put it past a few people first to see what they think, people that have heard me and spoken to me, and I'll put this out on Facebook. Maybe I'll get even more targeted, I don't know, but I just need to tell you what happened that day, and what led up to it. Thank you very much for listening. Bye for now.